All right, everybody. Welcome to our last lecture in Intermediate React. We're going to be talking tonight about CSS in React, and a couple of different ways of doing it. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the really basic way of including CSS and styling in React. We'll talk about including a library like Bootstrap, and then we'll go into something called styled components, which is really cool, really exciting stuff. I love styled components, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. But before we get started on that, let me set this up. I did not have this set up properly. Let's go over a little review of our higher order components that you worked on last night. Oop, that is not. There we go. One moment. I should have. And I'm just going to show you a model solution, essentially. You could have done it in a number of different ways, but the model solution. Cool. All right. Okay, so essentially what we have done here is we have our index.js is just like regular. We have our app coming in. We're importing our app from .app, right? Let's go look in our app file, app.js file. In our app.js file, we see that really nothing much has changed except for our default here, except for our export. What we're doing is we're actually exporting a higher order component that we built, okay? So we are passing this app class into a higher order component, and we are exporting that higher order component. So we're wrapping the functionality of the app inside of this higher order component, this HOC. Let's go look at what that looks like. So this is called authenticate, right? We are taking a single parameter, which that is going to be the component that we're passing into it, right? That's what we talked about last night. We're taking a single parameter, and then we're returning a new class, a new React component class, right? And you'll see we didn't even have to give it a name. So I gave it a name that might have been a little confusing last night, but we don't have to give it a name. We can just return this anonymous class. And this anonymous class is just a React component. That's all it is, right? But it allows us to give a little extra functionality on top of it. So we have a constructor, where we can pass in props or not. But the big important part right here is the state. So the state we have is the user logged in or not? Is somebody logged in? Right. This is a very, very, very naive approach to a login system. Obviously, we're not checking against any kind of database for username or password, anything like that. All we're doing is checking, making sure the user's logged in or someone's logged in. So we're just setting something on state that is logged in as false. We're just going to assume that the user is not logged in. That is the default state we have going on here. Next, in our render, we're going to say, right, because that's the next step in our lifecycle methods here, if the user is logged in, if this logged in is true, then we're going to return the app that was passed in to us, right? The component that was passed in. We named it app here because it's what it is. To be a little more clear, I would just put passed in component or something like that. Call it something other than app. So that's only if it's logged in, the user's logged in. If the user is not logged in, or if the state, I should say, is false, then we are going to return login page. Okay, so let's just look at this real quick. If we just start this from scratch, we're going to return login page, right? Because we are logged in false, okay? After we get that initial render, we are going to do a component did mount, and we're going to look in our local storage to see if there is an item of user in our local storage. If there is the item of user, we are going to set the logged in to true. If there is not, we are going to set logged in to false. Okay, that's coming afterwards though. So right now, when I refresh this page, what happens is index.js loads up app. App is actually this higher order component being passed in that app class, right? The higher order component has a state of logged in of false. It's going to default to logged in of false, and we're going to get this login page. It will then refresh. No, it won't refresh, sorry. After it renders, it'll run its component did mount, and right now we don't have anything in our local storage. So I can go local storage, get item, and we have it called user. And we have nothing, right? So then it's going to set the state to false again, reload that page. All right, let's go look at our login functionality. Login, and here's our login page. So this is what gets rendered to the screen if the item of user in local storage is null. All right, this is going to get rendered to the page. We've got a username, we've got a password. Sorry, upside down username and password. We've got a little handle input change, so we can change the input, type it in here. We have this form, right? And the big part of this form is handle login submit here. And handle login submit right now is going to create a user from the username that we have in here, and it is going to set the item of user on the local storage to that user, all right? So if I go, and I'll just go to Dan123, it's my password, and I hit login here, what it's going to do is it's going to set local storage set item user to Dan, okay? Obviously not secure, because we're just whatever, if someone enters anything that they're just going to be logged in. And then you'll notice right here, it says window location reload. So what that's going to do is that's going to reload the entire page. Any idea of why we have to do that reload? Kendra, I'll go back to your question in one moment. And actually, this kind of ties into Kendra's question. Is that local storage is not a part of React, okay? Local storage is a part of our browser. It's a part of our DOM, all right? So local storage isn't a React thing. It's every single browser. If you are writing vanilla JavaScript and basic DOM manipulation, you can use local storage. If you're using Vue or Angular or anything, local storage is available. Local storage is available wherever you have a browser, okay? Unless the user specifically turns local storage off, which you can in your browser. So that being said, React doesn't automatically read from local storage. Doesn't detect when local storage changes, right? Everything else detects when we change. When we change our state, when we change any props, React detects that there's a change. It determines what needs to be changed, and then it refreshes those components based on the virtual DOM. It doesn't detect when local storage changes. So we need to personally go in and trigger a reload. So when we reload, what's going to happen is we are going to log in. What that does is that now .get now look, now there is an item of user in our local storage of user of Dan. Okay. Eric, I don't know historically when local storage was added. It's been around for quite a while. So let's go through it. Let's go through our entire, we have this reload. So what that's doing is index is reloading. It's loading up app. App is loading up this higher order component, authenticate. Authenticate is coming in. It is rendering that login page automatically, right? It doesn't check local storage yet. It automatically renders that login page. And then once that initial render happens, then it will go in and check local storage. And then we'll be able to determine if the user is present or not. In this case, it is. So we're going to set logged into true. And since we are changing the state now, that is going to trigger a re-render. And now it's going to return the app for us. Login is not calling app, right? Login is calling window location reload. So this is essentially doing a reload for us on it. Let's see. React can read from local storage, but you have to call local storage specifically in a lifecycle method. Let's see. Yes, authenticate is the one rendering the app. Window.location, location, and we can just, if you're ever interested, just go. This is a browser. Should be able to. Nope. In here, location has essentially the page you're on. So I don't know why it said log out on there, but it's going to have your origin, path name, port, protocol, and it allows you, that has a reload method, which allows you to reload the page, the browse in your address bar that you're currently on. Okay. Absolutely. Let's go step by step over this once again, and I'm going to actually storage.clear. All right. So all this local storage and the window.location stuff, this is not React. Okay, I just want to make that clear. These lines, local storage and window.location, are part of the browser API. This is not React at all. So this is something that you have access to on any website ever within the browser. Okay, you don't have to be using React. So let's go through it once again. And I'm going to keep these open. All right. So our page gets initially loaded right here, app. And we're importing app from app, right? But what we're really doing is we're passing what we created here, this app class, into a higher order component. I'll call it authenticate. And we're exporting that. So what index thinks is app is actually this higher order component right here. So inside of this authenticate component, we're being passed this class, which is going to essentially load up our entire app, right? And that's where it's coming in right here. And this authenticate is just a function that returns a React component class, right? This component is giving it some state, logged in, false. On an initial render, it's going to just go, we already know on our initial render that logged in is false, so it's going to return the login page, no matter what, every time, first time. Then after that's rendered, we know that what comes after the render lifecycle method is the component did mount method. And that is going to go in and check our local storage in our browser to see if we've saved anything to our local storage under the user key. If we have not, then we're just going to return false, nothing's going to re-render because it's the same thing, and we'll just keep on going. If there is something in there under user, then it's going to log in true and return app. But there's nothing in there right now, right? So we're only on the login page. Login. I'm going to enter something in here. Dan. I don't even need to enter a password. I don't think it's that insecure or unsecure. So with our input here, we have saved a username and password on our state of our login. When we click on login, handle login submit is going to say, set the local storage item of user to whatever we have, whatever the user has inputted. Okay. After that, then reload the entire page. So what this is doing right here, this window.location.reload, is this is just reloading the entire page. All right. So if I take that out, I'm going to take that out. I'm going to press login now. What just happened there when I pressed login? Local storage was updated. Yep. The item of user on local storage was set to user. I can go in. And look, there it is. It's in there now. Okay. But it didn't reload the page. I can go and reload the page manually. And look, there it is. Okay. So that's what this is doing. This is just reloading the app. Once it reloads the app, it goes through that entire process again. Boom, app. Boom, authenticate. Boom, in here, right? It loads up that login page. You didn't see it, probably because it's so fast. You might, on a really slow computer, see a flash of a login page. But then component did mount goes and checks the local storage, sees that there is now a user in there, so it sets that to true, and instead of returning the login page, it's going to return that whole app that was passed in. All right? And so then there we go. That's our higher order component. Let's see. Jesse, if it causes a reload, it's because the button's default behavior is a reload on a form. So you have to prevent default. And I think someone said that. Jorge, we're going to get into authentication when we get into the backend portion of this class, and we'll talk about proper ways to store usernames and passwords. It's not advisable to store anything sensitive on the local storage. Let's talk about local storage for a second then. We got time tonight. So, local storage, and we'll talk about it more as well in the back end when we start talking about JSON web tokens and things like that. Memory, not memory, where's it at? Network, no, sources, there we go. All right, so we have, maybe that's not it. Gotta find it. Application, there we go. Cool, look at this. And this is the local storage from our app itself. Also, we have the user of Dan in here, okay? So local storage is just this like really, it's a key value storage, just like an object on our database, okay? On our browser. It's like a database key value storage on our browser. This only pertains to this website, localhost 3000. Okay, if I go to Google or something, this stuff does not appear on there. So they'll have their own. Want to see something scary? Go to Google and look at their storage. That's Google store local storage. Okay, that's what's on your computer from Google, and that's not including the cookies and everything else. So lots of stuff. But we do have access on our site to our own local storage, right? And that persists. Okay, and we'll go over what that means during the back end portion. But what we can do now is we can save stuff to it. So we can say local storage, and I don't know if that will just return everything. Does. So if you just type in local storage, it'll return everything in an object, essentially. But we can get and set items on local storage too. Set item. And it has to be in a method, and it has to be a string. We'll just say class FSWPT2. And now, if we go back in there, why didn't that get set? Oh, man. There we go. I don't know why that wasn't in there properly. It should have been. Huh, that's weird. Anyways, we can get that item out. Okay. Oh, was it? Yes, there it was. Okay, right up there. The things about local storage, if any of you ran into an issue with local storage, is that you have to save it as a string. How can we save something? How can we save an object as a string? What if I say, or say I want to save this array. Yep, that's exactly it. So what I can do is and we'll just say we're going to call this array. I can say JSON.stringify and pass it whatever I want to set, turn into a string. Now, I have that saved. Okay. So those of you that aren't familiar with JSON.stringify, now you are. That'll turn any object or array into a string, into a JSON string. We're going to go over this a lot more in depth later on as well. But any object, array, etc., will turn into a string. How do I turn it back into an array? Anyone know how to do that? Yep. So I can say JSON.parse storage.get item. Sorry if that's been way too small for you. I just realized. Oh, no. Oh, that's what it is. There we go. Turns it back to an array for us. Stefan, you need to either save multiple objects into a larger object or into an array and stringify that array. That's kind of a rundown of local storage right now. You're going to get, like I said, a much better lecture on it later. But I know it's kind of odd. I'm going to look into why we haven't talked about it yet. Yes, Levi. This is how we add property and a value to local storage. All right, any other questions right now about the higher order components and what we've got going on with that? Questions. Yeah, higher order components, if I can say it right, are tricky, just like higher order functions are in JavaScript. They're tricky. We're going to look at another one today that like will make you like have a little aha moment. But yeah, you'll need to work on them for sure. And they're not something that you use all the time in React, but it's just a really good composition structure to know about because they do get used and they are really powerful. And so it allows us to do a lot of really cool things in React. When we get into Redux, there's so many higher order components within Redux. It's crazy. You don't need to know exactly how to build them, but you need to know how they work, right? Cool. So what we're going to do today is move on into something a little lighter, I think, and that's talking about CSS in React. So we know that there are a couple of different ways to do CSS in React. Who can tell me the first way to do CSS in React? How to write CSS? A CSS file, right? Exactly. A CSS file. Look, I mean, we have index.css right here in our import. And look, there we go, right into index.css, and that is CSS, and we are importing it straight in. One thing to note about this is that this is a feature, since we are using Create React App, this is a feature of something called Webpack. I don't know how deep we've gotten into Webpack yet. We don't really get super deep into it because Create React App does a great job of developing all of our Webpack stuff for us. But it used to be that you couldn't just import a CSS file like this into React. You would have to put it into your HTML, your index.html file. You have to import it that way. You can do it, the same way we always have done it. But yeah, this is the first way to do it. Write your CSS in a file and import it into React. Second way, I see component-based inline style render. Preprocessor would be the same, right, Rob? Is just having your less compile to a less file and either importing that CSS file into our React or doing it into the HTML itself. So Tommy and a couple others I see have said inline styling. Yeah, totally. This is like the way we used to do it a lot. Would be like, let's actually, yeah, that works. We do something like this, and then we'd have to write it in a React way. This is how you have to do it. Well, it's been a minute since I've done React Native, but still might have to do it this way in React Native. And we say, we would create something like this, and then inside of here, we go style, styles. All right. And then, oh, cool, now our styling. And we would do all of our styling right in the React file like this. Ah, Stefan. It depends. It depends on why we say inline styles are bad. Inline styles are bad when we have a separate CSS file and we don't know where to find those inline styles. This is many of you will go and get jobs as React developers, and this is how your company will do it. This is kind of the older way of doing it. Cool. That's 2 ways of doing it. There's a third way of doing it, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and that's called styled components, which is actually writing CSS in JavaScript. But let's talk about using a UI library right now. I'm going to save that because that blue is horrible. So using a UI library, something like Bootstrap or Material UI. Let's see. Let's just go. Just go agree or disagree. How have you ever used Bootstrap? If you don't know what Bootstrap is, disagree is the button for you. Perfect, Kendra. And Jorge, I like Material UI too, but you know, it really depends on what you're doing and what kind of style you're going for. Bootstrap is kind of like the original UI library. Developed by Twitter. I'd say, don't know for sure, I'm guessing probably 8 to 9 years ago. And it's Twitter's internal styling. And they broke it out into its own package called Bootstrap. Okay. So those of you that have never used Bootstrap, don't know what it is. Bootstrap is a UI library. Okay. Bootstrap allows us to download and import this big CSS file, right? And allows us to just put, let's go find some examples. No, that's not the examples I wanted. Let's go to buttons, components, buttons. Cool. So it allows us to build our HTML just like we normally would, right? And then give it some classes that Bootstrap has already built for us. So say we build a button and we can give it the BTN class. So what that's going to do is that's going to go into the Bootstrap library and it's going to find the BTN class and it is going to apply all the styles of that BTN class to our button, right? We can give it something else, BTN primary. So that's going to be a color on it, right? You can give it large, and you can go through the documentation on Bootstrap, and it's massive. It's this huge UI library. You'll see that it pretty much looks exactly like Twitter, because that's what it's for. Well, that's what it was originally designed for. But you're also going to notice that it looks like 50% of the websites on the internet. And that's because this was, like I said, the big original UI library. It's not the original, but it's really the big one. And they have a very distinct look to it. And it really allows you, and it allows developers, what I personally use it for is prototyping. Sometimes I just want to build all the functionality of my app, and I don't want to have to think about the styling on it. And then I'll come back through, you know, and work on the styling. But it really allows you to build good-looking stuff in pretty quick just by adding some classes. So we can go button groups. Like there's all kinds of stuff on here, right? Here's our card. Look at this card. Inputs are great, right? It gives you these very like modals, carousels. Yeah, exactly. Nav bars. You know, so there's a lot of stuff to it. Okay, so Bootstrap is great, and it doesn't really fit into the React way of doing things, right? Just adding these classes, we can do better in React. And so comes React-Strap. So React-Strap is a Bootstrap library. It is Bootstrap. It includes Bootstrap in it. It is all the same, but it gives us components now. So we can base our Bootstrap styles on components. So look at this. We import button from React-Strap. That's an uppercase B button. And then we just write it like we would a button on here. And we get a Bootstrap style button out of it. Okay. So the first things first, how to install it, is we will actually, we're not going to install React and React Dom because they already have that. But we will install React-Strap, and we will also need to install Bootstrap itself. All right. So let me find my guy. We're gonna. It says npm install save. We can just take install save and do a yarn add, and we can say React-Strap and Bootstrap. And I'm going to yarn again. Yeah. Michael, when you yarn add, it will save your dependencies to your package.json folder file. Right there. Yeah, there it is. Sorry. React-Strap and Bootstrap into our dependencies in our package.json, and it also adds them to our yarn lock file. But we're not going to go into that because that's intense. That's where it saves them to. If you yarn add, you don't need to save with yarn add. Yes, you have to do this on every project. You can install items globally, like you have Less Watch and style and compiler installed globally. You can do that globally, but this is essentially all of the packages we need for this application. And you want one of these for every single app you build. Every project you build, you will need to install all of your dependencies. You don't want to have every single dependency in every single project. Yeah, if you use yarn, stick with yarn. If you use npm, stick with npm. Don't mix and match. All right, let's go look at, we can now see that in our model solution here, I'm going to go get rid of that. Let's just go clear. All right. And move this over. Go to components. Cool. So in our model solution here, in the login, we are already using Bootstrap. One last thing, you do need to have this Bootstrap import. This is in your training kit, okay? So if you don't know, you can't find it, you go find it in the training kit, but you will need to import Bootstrap, dist, CSS, and this is our node modules. Oh man, how many dependencies we have? Bootstrap, dist, CSS, and we're looking for the minified. There we go. That's what we've included in our project now, okay? So that automatically gets included by putting it in our import statement here. Yeah, you could Google it. I would just use the training kit. Cool. So now that we have React installed and we have Bootstrap imported, now we can start getting individual components. So first things first, we're going to talk about the button here. We can go in here and you can see, let's go find our button. There is great documentation on React. I think it's great. Material UI, I think, has not the best documentation. I think React is great. And so what it's going to do is it's going to tell us we can import a button, and we're destructuring this, right? We're only getting the button from React. We can get React and we can do React .button if we want, but we don't need to do that. All right, we only want to get the button right now. So we're getting the button from React, and now we can use it. It is a component. It's just like importing any other component that we ourselves have built. All right. Look, we go post page. That's a component right there. This is just like importing a component. Okay, and we can use it just like a component that we've built. Let's go down to our button right here, what we have already installed. On this button that we have, let's go look at it. It's this login button right here. Okay, we are saying, give it the button. And also, you'll notice we have a number of props that we can pass to this button. So we can come in here and we can learn what the props are. First of all, we can see color. The thing about Bootstrap is it is very opinionated. Okay, Bootstrap has its set colors. You can go in and change and create like kind of a custom Bootstrap thing. It's pretty difficult, more advanced, but these are the colors we get. We get primary, secondary, success, info, warning, and danger. All right, so let's look at this. We have success right now, and look, success is green, our login is green. Let's change this to danger. This is just a prop, right? This is a prop. The color prop is being passed to the button component, and it's expecting a string. So if we say danger, and there we go, right? If we say primary, now it's changed, right? So you can come into the documentation, find the color you're looking for, and change the prop on it. There we go. The next thing we see on here is the size, right? We have a size of large. Let's go look at our sizes. First of all, our documentation is going to give us all of the props that this component accepts. So it accepts active, block, color, disabled, tag, inner on click, size, and close. Those are the only props we can pass to it. Okay, that's it. All right. So let's see. I didn't see outline on there. Why is an outline on there? All right, that's maybe not the only props we can pass to it. That's really weird. We have size. We don't have outline. That's odd. Or, yeah, so that's an outline prop that we can pass to it. Okay, well, whatever. We'll skip that. But we can come down here to sizes. So now we have size large or size small. We also have block level buttons. So let's go size. That's funny. It's large like that. There's our large. It should have been LG. SM. Right? And we can say block. Look at that. So one thing I want to talk about with this right here. Notice that I gave a prop and I did not give it any value at all. Right? Essentially what this is doing is this is saying the block prop is equal to true. Okay. React doesn't want us to write it this way. If it's just going to be equal to true, then we just pass the prop itself just like that. All right. If we want to equal it to false, we would go false, or I can spell, or we just don't pass it at all. Right. So that's false. Right. So if you see something where it's like, oh, just write the prop name, then know that that means true, right? Cool. And the same thing we can do. There was block. There was outline. Right. So now it's an outline. Man, look, Bootstrap gives it that really cool animation, that hover animation. It's great. I don't think you could write it like that, Steve. I think React would get mad at that. But just know that these just mean block equals true, outline equals true, right? Let's go to disabled. So disabled, the same thing. We can tell something that we want it to be disabled. We can tell this button that we want it to be disabled. And now I can't click it at all, right? Let's take a break. 5 minutes, we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about Bootstrap, and then we'll get into styled components. All right. See you guys in 5. All right, everyone, come on back. That's our 5-ish minute break. I noticed the timer wasn't running after I came back in the room with my new chair. So all right, cool. So come on back. We'll talk about Bootstrap a little bit more, and then we will move into style components, which I'm chomping at the bit to get to because I love them. So Bootstrap, right? We have, let's talk about this real quick. This is a great one to do. Disabled state, right? So you might be saying like, well, why do we care about having React components based on Bootstrap? We can just write classes, right, into our regular JSX. We can just put a button and put the BTN class on it and call it good, right? This is where it really comes in and makes it cool. So I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. Oh, disabled on click. Talk about that on click as well. We'll talk about this on click real quick. This on click is not the React on click. Okay, this on click is a prop on this button component, right? It would be just like us putting an on click on any component that we have. It's not going to work unless there is an on click prop on this app specifically, right? On this component. Well, there is an on click prop on the button, but you really are going to have to go in and do your due diligence to find which props are available to us. So we have on click available to us, right? And it does something, right? We do not have on mouse enter or on mouse leave available to us. We can't extend the functionality of a hover to this Bootstrap component, okay? So before you go and start doing any other kind of event in here, go into the documentation and make sure that event is supported on that specific component. If it's not, you can't use it. Okay. So this is what this is going to do. This has an on-click prop, and that's essentially going to pass it to the on-click event on the button itself, right? So just make sure that you understand that not all React events are available on these components. Yeah. On any of these components, right? You might have a nav bar or something that you want to put an event on. You can't, right? That is a limitation of this React strap. Cool. But let's talk about what makes it. Well, first of all, we can throw on-click events in like that. Second of all, let's talk about this disabled button. All right. Let's go back to our page. Save this. Now let's go, and I want to change that color to success. And let's go block on it again. I like that block. Look to it. All right, I have disabled here. What does this disabled mean right now? Yeah, it's disabled. It's essentially saying this, right? Not saying that, saying that. It's saying that we're passing the true Boolean to the disabled prop, and that is disabling the button for us. Okay, so we know that we can pass false into here if we want, right? And disable will be false. Okay, so what we can do is we can start putting props on these dynamically. So let's go in and do something like we say that we have a username and a password. So let's make sure that a user can't click login until they're is something in the username and something in the password, right? We don't want them to be able to log in until that exists, until there's something in there. So what we can do is this. Let's go const disabled button, and we can say this dot state dot username and this dot state password, right? So what this is doing is checking the length, and we can say dot length equals 0 or something like that. We can do this. Let's do this right now. That makes it more sense. So what this is doing is this is checking to see if the username of, and we should do an or there actually. If the username length is 0, or if the password length is 0, then it's going to come back as true, right? So if the username length is 0, that's true. Or if the password length is 0, that's going to come back as true as well. Okay. If there's anything in there, this is going to come back as false, right? So we're going to say the disabled, if there's nothing there, will be true. If there's something there in both of them, it will be false. So now we can come in and do something like this. And now look, our button is disabled because neither a username nor a password, or both username and password, have the length of 0. If I come in and say Dan, still false, right? Or still true because password still has the length of 0. And then if I come in and go 1, 2, 3, now look, our button is no longer disabled. Okay, that's the power of having. Yeah, you could, Stefan. You could do that in its own. It makes sense right here, just because each time the state's updated, it's re-rendered. That's fine. You can put it in its own function if you want. Yep. Either way works. But that's the power of using a library like React Strap, whereas we could have done this. We could have done this disabled button thing with just using classes, but man, this just makes it so much more React-like. And it makes us feel, this is React, right? Passing these props is React. And sticking with that paradigm is going to go a long way. So, go through, check out there's so much. Jumbotron, carousel, right? We have Bootstrap has built-in carousels for us. Just go. You don't have to build your own carousel anymore, right? In your Lambda times, you can just go grab a Bootstrap carousel and note, that is going to be the Bootstrap style of carousel, and it's going to be the Bootstrap style of a card and a button drop down and groups. This is going to all look like Bootstrap, but you can just go grab it and include it in your app, right? So it's pretty cool stuff. Any questions on Bootstrap right now? It makes for, like I said, it makes for prototyping easy and fast with styling. Stealing is new favorite coding habit. Yeah, if it wasn't for quote unquote stealing, there would be no software in this world. So nobody's writing their stuff from scratch. Yeah, you can. You can use it. Tonight you're not going to. Tonight and tomorrow you're going to be using styled components, but you can use it in any other. You can add styling to Bootstrap. It is difficult, and I'm not. Well, you're going to have to actually go in and download. So you can go to getbootstrap.com, click on it. You can extend, and so then you can learn in here about how to change items in Bootstrap. You can also go and I forgot where it is. Expo. Nope. There's a way to go in and change all your colors and change all that stuff and create your own themes in it, and then download that specific theme. But I can't seem to find it here. Maybe it's utilities. No. Yeah. Okay. Not really. Yeah, you can find it in there. If you go to themes, that's not. It's pre-built themes by other people that you pay for. Yeah. You can go in, if you're interested, you can go in and search and find it. It's a lot of work. Okay. It's a lot of work to build your own. But if you want to do it, go for it, because then you get complete control over the colors, all that stuff, and you can do whatever you want with Bootstrap. All right, you're still going to get those Bootstrap looking. Like, look at these themes; they're all still very Bootstrap looking, all right? But they're their own themes. Yeah, they all look really good. I guess if you're paying for them too. Yep. Let's see. If you're using React, can you mix Bootstrap elements and non-Bootstrap elements? Yes, you can, Christopher. So 100%. You can still come in here and say lowercase button, right? Look me, and you're still going to get that regular old HTML button in there. Okay, so you can mix and match what you want. A lot of times people just come in, they bring in React Strap just for the carousel or just for the button, etc. So yeah, you can mix and match. Would it be best to style it on your own without Bootstrap? It depends on what you're trying to do, right? If you like the look of Bootstrap and that's what you want your project to have, then go for it. Use Bootstrap. If, like I said, if you want to use just the buttons or just like the modal functionality, which is awesome, just use Bootstrap for that. Styling it on your own is going to make it so that you need to design it on your own as well. Like I said, I use Bootstrap or Material UI for prototyping. I love just throwing a button in there. It looks good off the bat. Build it out, build all the functionality out, show it to who you need to show it to. And then if you want to go back in and add your own styling, go for it. Kendra, in practice, what's used more often? Do you mean what's used more often in own styling or Bootstrap? Ooh, it's kind of hard. Bootstrap is really, really huge. Bootstrap is everywhere. There is no best practice. All right, or Javier, sorry. Javier, there's no best practice. You're gonna, now that those of you that have never seen Bootstrap before, now that you know what it is, and you're gonna develop, you're gonna be able to notice it. You're going to notice it everywhere. Like major companies just use Bootstrap and don't use their own styling, right? So you're going to notice it everywhere. But it depends on what you're going for. It depends on what your design team is going for. Depends on if you're building your own, if you're building your own greenfield project from scratch, Michael, or if you're jumping on with a team. I want to say that if you are working for a company that has a designer, you're not using Bootstrap in production. But sometimes you go work for a 4-person startup and you don't have a designer, and so you use Bootstrap in production. There's nothing wrong with it. It looks great, right? You would add that wherever you yarn start from, wherever you install your yarn from, that's where you yarn add. Yep, wherever your package JSON is. Christopher, that does seem strange to have a limit of color for a button, but like I said, if you really care that much, you can go in and make your own theme. And most websites only have 2 or 3 colors on them to begin with. So, yeah, Bootstrap is, it is the Twitter design, right? So Twitter has amazing designers that work for them, and they built Bootstrap from it. So it's not that it's bad. It's actually pretty great design. It's just it can look generic if you just use it plainly. You cannot restyle a Bootstrap. You can, but it's a pain. Exactly. It looks generic now because it is so successful. Because it looks so good, everyone used it, right? And everyone uses it. Same with material. I think material looks generic too. Right, that Google Android style. Well, that doesn't look great right there. Let's go Material UI. World's most popular React UI framework, I'm sure. Right, Material looks pretty. This is like the Google style, right? Google pretty much came out with Material components. Let's go to buttons. All right. I think this also looks generic because it's great. It's beautiful. People love it. All right. So. Yeah, Michael. Most major companies that are tech focused have teams that are doing open source stuff. Materialize. I use Material UI. Materialize. Isn't Materialize Angular? That's an Angular. Or based on Angular, something like that. Well, they're taking forever. Or is it just CSS? Or is it just like Bootstrap? Might be. There's so many of them out there. I kind of like Material UI more. But, there's a ton of UI frameworks out there. Okay. So you pick what you want, which one you want. I think Bootstrap looks great, and it's really easy to use with React Strap. Material UI went through a big change recently, or in the last 6 months, and the documentation kind of was messed up. But use whatever you want, and know that there are a ton of frameworks out there. Cool. Let's move on. All right. So we now know how to include Bootstrap in our React stuff. Let's talk about kind of the newest cutting edge technology of what's going on in the React world right now. It's something called styled components. So let's go. Come in here and log in. Cool. Let's go into our post container And let's come into our header here. Great. All right. So the newest way of writing CSS with our React files is something called styled components. And styled components is essentially, let's go to get away from the docs. Cool. Styled components is writing CSS in JavaScript. All right. That's what it is. It is being able to just write it right in our JavaScript, and we are essentially creating our own components based on the styled components, right? We can come in and let's go to our documentation. Let's just do first things first. First things first. Nope, that's not it. There we go. Let's find it. Okay, first things first, yarn, add styled components. Make sure styled components is what we need. Installation, let's come in here. Styled components, right? That's what we want. Remember, install save for npm is just yarn add, okay? So, add styled components. Let's wait for it to install. All right, we are there. And I will make this bigger. And I'll make that smaller. And actually, I'm going to open up our CSS, and then I can close it for you. That's fine. All right. So right now, what we have in this post header is that we have our class names, right, on each of our divs. And then that corresponds to, say, post header. We'll find post header in here, right here. Display flex, right? That corresponds to something in our CSS file. So what we do with styled components is we are going to import, and this can be whatever you want it to be, but styled is the way they use it, so it's the way you should use it. From styled components. So we're going to import style from styled components. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our first component. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, instead of post header here, we're going to create a header. Okay. And notice this is outside of our, you can do it inside or outside, but I'm going to do it outside right now. Outside of our functional component here. So we're going to say styled, and then let's go look at our, I really wanted just to show. What we can do is we can say styled dot and any HTML element we want, okay? In the HTML, we can do A, we can do a P, right? A div. We can do anything we want, right? It has the concept of every single HTML element. This is kind of where it gets a little weird, right? So we have style.div, and style.div is actually a method. No, the anchor tag is just the A. This is an anchor tag, and then you can put whatever your href is on it. But we're going to go to div right now, and this is essentially a method, right? In style components, they do things a little bit different. where, and this is pure JavaScript. In JavaScript now, you can just do 2 backticks, and that's essentially the same as doing this. All right. So it's a little strange to look at first, but you'll get used to it. 2 backticks just means call this method with this as its one argument. All right. So within this, now we can write whatever CSS we want. This doesn't have to be in JavaScript React flavored CSS. We can put hyphens in here. You know, we can say background color. All right. We don't have to do background color, etc. Okay, so let's just do this. Background color of, who wants to give me a color? Periwinkle. Is periwinkle real? We'll find out. And then let's go look at what we have in here. Let's see, we have display. We'll just do this actually right now. So now we have a new div component. We've called it header, and it has some CSS to it. All right. What we can do now is we can come in here, and we can totally nuke that. Right, that is a div. Right. No, actually, I'm not going to nuke it totally. I'm just going to do that, so we can reference it in a moment. Cool. So now look at this. We have created a component called header using our styled component, style.div. So it is a div, and it's going to have the background color of periwinkle. Let's go look at what we have now. Ooh, is periwinkle real? Background color. Aqua. Let's just go with aqua. Let's see if I'm messing up. Periwinkle isn't real. I can't overuse Dodger Blue, but aqua, yeah, there we go. Look at that. Now our headers on these post containers have that background color, right? So now let's go into here and let's say our post header, we had to display a flex in there. All right. Display flex. And there we go. So now we have all of our CSS styling from CSS is now on our page right here. Now you might be saying, once again, why don't we just write it in our CSS file, right? Why does this matter? This matters because now we can pass these components props. And we can pass these components props, and we can get them to render differently based on the props that we pass them. We can get also, and I'll show you this in a moment. Let's come back to our, let's go back to our, I'm actually going to get rid of that. There we go. Local storage dot clear. All right. So, where are we at? There we go. All right. I'm going to go back into the login. It's because we know we're playing around with buttons in there. And we can, first thing first, import styled from style components. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button. Ooh, that's not going to work very well. Let's go style button. Style button equals, and we want to create a button. How do we create a button HTML element from this? What's the first thing we do right now to create a button HTML element? Styled dot button, right? Whatever HTML element we want, we can create it. How do I call this method? We have to use backticks. Remember that. Backticks. Not single quotation, backticks. Okay? Because that's important, the backticks part. Let's come in. There was a great, let's go back to the beginning here. Cool. We've got a great button right here. We're going to steal this. All right. Essentially, we have some display, border radius, some padding on it, margin, width, background, color, border, right? Let's come down into here, and instead of this being button, we'll make it styled button. Cool, there's a button. Look at that. Fantastic, right? It's our styled button. It's got everything we've asked it for in here. So what if we want to change the color of the background, right? What if we want to change the color of the background, and we want to, make it so that this is like the default button, but we want to be able to possibly add some functionality to it. We can do that because this is a component. And we know that we can pass components props. Styled button returns a React component, okay? That's all it is. And we can pass the component props, all right? And so we can say something like, let's just do something like primary. Remember what I said about what primary means. What is this saying now? But how? I'll show you. It's saying that I'm passing a prop called primary to the styled button component and giving it the Boolean of true, right? That's what it's saying. So now we have a primary prop on styled button of true, okay? Does anyone have any questions about that? I want to make sure that everyone knows. This isn't a Bootstrap thing. This is a React thing, okay? See some typing? I want to make sure that we're all on the same page right now. It's a React thing. Sure, this could be called Dan, right? I can call this anything we want. Dan's special button. Okay, this is just giving Dan's special button prop on styled button a Boolean of true, right? So that primary block, disabled, all that stuff on Bootstrap, that matters for Bootstrap, but that doesn't matter for us. We can give any name to any prop we want if we're passing it ourselves, right? Okay, that's a great question because I don't want to get that confused. Just for the style button right now, right? There is some super advanced style component stuff where you can pass stuff down to children, but we're not going there right now. We're not going there tonight. We're just talking about this. Let's just go red button. We're going to call it red button, and we're going to say true, right? Does this make sense? if I do something like this to a component, give it a prop called red button, and give it the Boolean of true. I would hope that makes sense of just creating a prop for anything, okay? In our styled button up here now, we can say, I'm going to go, we can add JavaScript, right? Just like any other string, right? If we wanted to create a string, I can say, if I wanted to then say full name, I can use backticks, and I can use that, and I can add JavaScript into a string, right? Using backticks, right? Does this make sense to everyone? I want to make sure that this makes sense. We should all be pretty comfortable with this. All right. What we're doing here, what this is allowing us to do, is it's allowing us to add JavaScript to this string. And we could do the same right here. Okay, so we're just adding JavaScript to this string. Why is it telling me that it's an error? Inside of here, let's go back and look. It expects us to give it a function in here, passing props in. Okay, so I'm going to write this props. Okay, and I can say something like if props dot red button return, and then we actually need to get the CSS method from here. So we'll come up here and go CSS. We can say background, what do we call it up there, of red, right? So all I'm saying is it's passing us that props. And if I'm saying props that red button, right, we have red button down here, and what is that red button equals? True. Then I'm going to give it also the background of red. Let's see what happens. Look at that. Let's take that out, and now it goes back. Okay, so this is going to allow us to create our own any dynamic buttons or dynamic components based on the data that we have. You know, you can pass it in widths and heights. You can pass it in, you can make these things animated, right? Let me show you. There's all kinds of documentation. Let's go. Animations. We can animate stuff in here. I think the best part about this is where is it at? Come on. Well, we can add media queries right to it. Okay. We never used to be able to put media queries in, but we can say now, just write in it. Something like that. Look at that. We just added a media query directly into our React. Okay. So we can do so much stuff with style components based on our data that's coming in from our state, our props, We can put styled components in a separate file, absolutely. So you could create a whole like maybe components, and then you can say like styled components folder, and then you can have a ton of different components in there, and you can just bring them in to your React file just like you would any other component. Let's see, it's gonna be always based on props, or can we use the state? So let's talk about it. This is a functional component. Okay, style.button returns a functional component. It does not have its own state. We can pass state in. We can pass the state of this into it as a prop, just like we would any other component, right? We can pass state down through props. We can do the same exact thing with these. So if, you know, just like we did disabled button, we can do something like that on our styled button, right? So let's go, I don't want to do disabled, but let's just say gray button equals disabled button. Okay. That's what we got. And we can come in here, do another one. We can say instead of red button, we'll say gray button, and then we'll just say gray. Now check it out. This is the exact same code as our disabled button was before, right? We're just passing that disabled button into it. Disabled button is true when one of these, when either of them are empty, and it's false when both of them are closed. So, oh, well, we need something that's not gray back there. Let's just go black. Oh, that should, did I say gray? Oh, there we go. That's right. Right? Now look. As. So we can pass now, we can pass props into these styled buttons. Okay. We can give it whatever functionality we want. And there's one more really cool thing we can do with it. First of all, what questions do you have right now regarding this? I do too. I love style components. If I'm talking too fast, it's because I love this. Does anyone have any questions right now on what we're doing on the page? Yeah, and you'll have, that's what we're doing tonight and tomorrow. CSS, this is a method, right? Once again, I'm importing this from the style components. And once again, I'm giving it that, remember what that's doing with this? It's calling that method and passing it in. So this is just saying that to add CSS to this. So that is part of the style component library. So that's why I say CSS here. This is actually a method. It's a function, right? I'm importing. Yeah, I know. You'll get used to it. But if you look in documentation, same thing, right? And they have it a little more efficient than I do. I just wrote it out just so we could be really clear of what was going on here. But most probably you would do something along the lines of gray button. Oh, you wouldn't even do that. Let's go That's what you would probably write, right? Same thing. It's just that this function inside of here, the styled button, the method will always pass the props to that function. You can absolutely add multiple props. Yeah. Right. You can have props do whatever you want on here. So you can essentially build your own React strap with styled components. Someone was talking about earlier how the new material UI is using styled components or CSS and JS. That's what this is all they're doing, right? They're just creating these components with styled components and then allowing you to add. Let's go. Let's create a hidden. We're going to create a hidden property or prop. We know that if just added it makes it true. And then let's do something like boom, it's gone. Take hidden out, and it's back. Okay, so just think of the possibilities that you can do with this styled component stuff. Stefan, yes. All right, one final thing before I let you break you loose and let you go work on your own styled component stuff is the best thing. Let's go. We're going to create a new component, and we're going to call it tomato button. This is what will be on the, well, this is on the documentation here. And let's say we are now taking button and passing it to styled, right? And styled is giving us a new component. What is styled? Right here. What is this? A little bit more. Yes. It's a higher order component. Okay. So this is taking a component and wrapping it in more functionality and giving us back that. All right. And then we can just say background color tomato. And let's come in here and say tomato button. We're not going to give it any. Well, that didn't work. Oh. Why did that mess up? There we go. Yep. Boom. Look at that. We just extended the functionality of that styled button. So we can create this button. We'll just say we create it without these props. And then we can create however many colors and what we want from that button. Okay. We can extend the functionality, extend the styling of that button. So think of this like, if you remember back in Less, like a mix-in, right? Where we can just add a mix-in to something. Very cool stuff. And allows us to dynamically change things on the screen based on what our React state is in, based on the props that we receive. And we can pass to these components. Sure, you would just do it like you would do any file, right? Let's just take these. Let's go boom, 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 boom. Filed buttons.js. Okay, come to our login. And oh yeah, I took the props off of there. It's been a while, but I've had it for a while. Cool. So yeah, we just put those buttons in their own buttons folder in a styled, or buttons file in a styled folder, and we can just get them whenever we want, right? And include them wherever we want. All right. Any questions on this right now? There, very much so. And if you go and dive deep into the styled components documentation, you're going to find a lot of functionality that's very similar to less. But we can now just write it all in our React files, right? Awesome. Well, let me do something. Come into here. Cool. All right, on your day 4 README, we are going to refactor everything to use styled components, okay? So replace all the styles you've previously written, change everything to be a styled component. So you'll go into your search bar, your styled components, etc. So follow through this list, and essentially your project is going to be creating everything as styled components, okay? Well, this is a pretty chill one. Essentially, all you're going to do is go in and create style components based on your CSS, right? And it's a lot of fun, and it'll get you good exposure at creating style components. Yeah, so work through all of this, and that'll be tonight and tomorrow night, and then Saturday is Sprint Challenge Day. But have fun with it. I love it. I love styled components. I love using them. When I first used them, I was like blown away by it, and I've been excited ever since. So have fun with it. This is a fun project to work on, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good night, everyone.